New tyre I put in is fucked already. I blamed the pump. I thought the pump had worn out and it wasn't activating the valve, but no. Bullshit. I only just put this tube in and it's already like installing the tube, punctured the tube. This is why I'm going back to mountain bike style for my next bike. It's possible I might be able to put mountain bike tires on this bike, but it could be a different wheel size. I'm gonna have to take it out again and put a new tube in. See, the problem is it takes so much force to put this tires on the rim that you're likely to damage the inner tube while you try and do it. You're much better off with a bike like this where you can easily do anything that you need to do. But I prefer the mountain bike size. This bike's a bit too small, the brake's too weak, doesn't have enough grip, it's not fast enough, doesn't have enough suspension, all that stuff. This bike was good when it worked, but the range is not that good. You know, the range is not what they claim it is, you know, unless you get a really good battery, but then it would be so heavy that it makes the bike so heavy. One of these bolts has fallen out and I've lost it. I only just noticed this. It's a good job that I did this, because there's some issues that I need to work on. For example, the brake is completely useless now. That it's even, oh right, because I've got it off, but it needed bleeding. This one's okay-ish. It's a bit, but yeah, it's I've not had them for that long, and this one I could pull it to the bar, so it needs redoing. And if something goes wrong, then these brakes cost like £300 for a set, which is like a lot of money. I think the brakes on my mountain bike were worth like, I don't know, 25 or 40 quid each, so like less than £100 a set. And they stopped the bike really well, so I guess I'll try and redo this then. I hoped I wouldn't have to do this, and I could just perhaps swap the valve core over, or try a new pump, you know, a new whatever it's called. Sucks. This sucks. I've had this bike for about 9 months now, 10 months. I finished it in, I think, October or November last year, and I haven't had any major issues with it. You know, it hasn't broken down. I had one puncture on the rear tyre, and I fixed it with tyre slime, and it held for a few months, and then it started leaking the stuff everywhere. So I've had to take the back wheel off and try and swap the inner tube, and that's what I've been doing. But then I noticed the brake needs doing. The brake needs bleeding. So actually, the last time I tried to breed, I've done it before a couple of times. Last time I did it, the cap thing, the reservoir cap, broke off. Its plastic thread broke off. Not on this bike, and it on the mountain bike, and so I had to try and fish out parts of the plastic thread from the brake reservoir. So I didn't get all of it out, so there's a small amount of plastic in the brake reservoir, right? So if you make a mistake with like these brakes though, they're worth 300 quid a set, these Magura MT7s. So if you do something wrong, if you break these somehow, let's say you crash into a tree and you break the brake line, you've got to figure out how to replace that brake line, or potentially get it's if you mess something up like permanently, that's a lot of money. Similarly, if the controller breaks, they cost like 300 400 quid, the battery 600 quid or more, the forks were 300 400 quid. Do you get what I mean? Everything on the bike is expensive, and if something breaks, it's up to you to fix it. You're not going to get much support. The way I had to do this was custom, because it didn't fit properly. It wanted a tapered stem fork, which I didn't even know existed, and this is a straight fork, right? The one I ordered is not the one they sent in terms of like the brand. The best ones are the Volcano ones, and that's what I thought I'd ordered. Now, this one has no pressure adjust, so I can't improve the suspension. There's just all these issues. Obviously, this should have been cut off, but I just don't want to risk cutting it, because if you make a mistake, then you fucked up something that's worth that much money. The geometry is fucked, and I'm trying to fix it by rotating this around, or going like a 0 set back or whatever. Hub motors are good. The one I had on my other bike, very good, but it fucked up the spokes. It rattles them loose. You have to tighten them up, super glue them, whatever. I spent a lot of time. That's probably the thing that I've spent the most time fixing on the other bike, is the spokes. So if a similar thing happens with this, you've got more of a problem, because this thing weighs a lot more. You're going to have a harder time finding a replacement spokes. It's more if something goes wrong, it's more dangerous, because the bike is heavier, it's faster, it's more powerful. Let's say you wanted a tool to tighten the spokes up, which I don't have yet. How are you going to know what tool you need? Because it's a non-standard bike, right? You're going to have trouble figuring out what tool you need. If you need to open up the motor and fix something inside, like the sensors, you're going to need a special tool, which you can probably only get from China or something. It's this thing with like 3 hooks and a screw thing. So yeah, you need all this stuff, and it all costs money. You need special things to take the tires off, all this stuff. I wouldn't say the design of the bike is bad. I'd say it's a good quality, reliable bike. For something that's so heavy and powerful, it's good, it's reliable, right? It's a good design in that sense, but it's just the general issues of using the bike. It's so heavy, just going through farm gates and stuff, it's so heavy. If you ever break down and you need to get it in a car, it's going to be very difficult. The range is not that good. The range of it is actually a lot less than this bike, and this bike costs less than half as much. The Delfast bike, they say, that has 200 miles range, is nonsense. They're doing it indoors with like special tires and all this, like a super lightweight rider who's also pedaling the bike on a super smooth surface. with no wind, with a huge battery that probably would cost you like $2,000 or more. All these troubles. So yeah, I've just had to do this again, and I'm was dripping with sweat. I've had coronavirus this week, so if someone's got long COVID or some, I have chronic fatigue syndrome already, which is similar to long COVID. So this was a lot of work for me, and I didn't want to have to do it twice. I didn't want to have to do this twice. It's much easier to swap a tyre on a mountain bike, and it's even easier to swap a tyre on that though. I had issues where my cable was rubbing, so I'm just repairing that. It actually rubbed away the insulation on one of the phase cables, so I had exposed metal carrying 72 volts at 50 amps, right? So potentially could electrocute you, right? Because it's a phased signal, it's not like pure DC. So yeah, you can have problems. Probably rubbing on the brake disc, the nuts on the brake disc, right? This thing here sits inside there, and that's the closest thing to it. So these little bolts stick out. So the tutorial I watched didn't really give a good enough explanation of how to. Well, I paid for this tutorial, right? Because you can't find it on YouTube really. You can find bits of information, but the actual full length information of how to make them, it didn't really tell me how to secure that cable in such a way that it's not gonna get damaged. So if that breaks, you're gonna have a lot of problems. You're gonna have to open up the whole motor, buy this special tool, extract the motor, extract the cable, buy new cables, solder them all together. These things were very difficult to solder on. These XT, whatever they are. The Sur Ron is a better design because the cables are much shorter, and they can probably get away with just using these. They don't need to constantly disconnect them, so they can get away with using these, like whatever they are, crimp connectors, where they bolt together. Much better. To solder a thick wire like that, it's onto one of these circular, they're called bullet connectors. It took hours. It was not easy, and one of them broke off already, which is why you use this instead. Yeah. Pain in the ass. Obviously it costs more than a regular bike. So are you really getting the value for money? Like, what can this do for you that a mountain bike can't do, is the question, you know? Because you can put a more powerful motor on a mountain bike, 2 kilowatts, perhaps more, depending on what motor system you use and stuff. But because I've already invested in this bike, I'm just gonna have to stick with it and just keep using it, try to find ways to improve its faults, find ways to repair it. It's a lot of effort, and the more bikes you have, the more trouble you've got, because you've got to do it for every bike you've got. So, but it is nice to have 2 bikes, because you can have one charging while you use the other one, or if one needs to go in for maintenance, you can use the other one.